Hello everybody, and welcome to my new video where I talk about which is the best chip stock to buy in my humble opinion. So I've put to work my spreadsheet where I analyze stocks, and I wanted to quickly walk you through some of the valuation and growth metrics on what I consider to be the four main chip stocks, TSMC being mostly a foundry, Intel almost has no foundries, and AMD and NVIDIA mostly operating in the GPU sector and mostly being designers of chips. So which one is the best stocks out of these four stocks? These four stocks are no doubt very, very famous, especially the first two, AMD and NVIDIA, especially the past 5 years, and we'll see why. But essentially, these are pretty large market cap stocks. So these are pretty massive companies, tons of revenue, tons of gross profit. So really blue chip stocks, I would argue, for all of them. But they have different characteristics. So in this channel, I'm interested in growth companies, growth stocks, because I want a stock that will compound at least 30% a year to beat monetary inflation. That's why I named the channel Beat the Denominator. So which stocks is likely to do that just on a cursory look? Well, only AMD to me. Over time, it is my observation that over time, revenue growth closely matches returns. And revenue growth right now for AMD is 37%, expected next year. NVIDIA is expected only 21%, TSMC only 17%, and Intel minus 8%. Wow, the present value of declining cash flows is not a very good idea. Sorry if you like Intel, but I don't want to bash any of these companies. It's just it depends on the style of investing you're interested in, and to me, when I look at this, there's two clear companies that are investable as far as I'm concerned. As far as a growth investor, it's NVIDIA and AMD. Those companies are clearly investable. No investment advice, but they have provided outstanding returns, and so I don't think one could be faulted for choosing any of these stocks, but especially any of these growth stocks. TSMC to me, when I look at this company, I think value stock. I mean, this screams like a value stock. You're in your 50s, your 60s, you've made it in life, and you have capital that you want to preserve. TSMC is a very, very good stock for that. Arguably, the valuation of TSMC is interesting, but the growth is just not there to excite me. And yes, they have a moat, very strong, very defensible moat, but the growth is just not there. It's more of a value stock to me, so I wouldn't be interested in TSMC. And Intel, again, I'm so sorry to see Intel in this situation. Intel was such a leading company, but when the chip market moved away from CPUs into GPUs, Intel really lost its way, and GPUs are the future of computing, and they're the future of chips, they're the future of AI. You need GPUs to do AI computations. Anything related to AI is GPU based. So Intel missed. Intel really missed the GPU movement, and so they have declining sales now. And their enterprise value, actually, if you look at Intel, market cap is much lower than enterprise value. Why? Because they have so much debt. They have so much debt and they're investing heavily. So I would be very careful with Intel. Sure, on a value perspective, it looks amazing. But if you have declining cash flows, that's not very good. It's a turnaround story, right? You're betting on a turnaround. And when I look at the valuation of these stocks, I mean, obviously, NVIDIA is really highly valued, but with products like the A100, for example, there's no denying that NVIDIA is the leader in AI, and AMD is a close second. If you look at things like Stable Diffusion, for example, they use NVIDIA's A100s. All of these, I mean, these two companies, both AMD and NVIDIA, have a very compelling portfolio. AMD with the Xilinx acquisition, very compelling. They are running a lot of the software behind the Teslas. So I would argue both of them are compelling. And actually, I have a small position in both of those because I have a hard time to choose. And to me, valuation is the lesser criteria. what's the first criteria though is growth, which is why my choice here is AMD, because AMD has 37% growth next year versus 21%. So I like AMD better because of the growth. So if you compare as far as valuation goes, this is Tesla. So these are my numbers, my estimates, everything calculated the same way. Thus, when you look at Tesla, yeah, you really see that the valuation of Tesla is a little higher than AMD, but it's in line, in my opinion, with NVIDIA and TSMC. So nothing screams overvalued or undervalued, except for AMD. I feel like AMD is a little bit undervalued right now, and that may be a good stock to buy. No investment advice. So, like I said, one of the changes that I want to make to my portfolio right now is obviously beginning of the year. I'm trying to shift the portfolio for the concentrating my bets on the most high growth. I have an equal position in AMD and NVIDIA, and I'm considering trimming some AMD to add to trimming some NVIDIA to add to AMD. That's what I'm considering doing. And mostly because I like to follow my portfolio and make sure I do right moves, but I would not completely sell out of either stock. I believe they both have a good position. So the next video that I will make will be on AMD. After this valuation and this comparison of growth numbers, it seems to me like AMD is the most compelling one, and so I will make a video on AMD in the coming days. Let me just conclude this video by showing you some of the outstanding returns that AMD and NVIDIA have provided, roughly equally. So this is the past 8 years. The reason why I chose 2015 as the beginning of the date, I could have chosen 2014 or 2016. I chose 2015. The reason why I chose that as the start date is because AMD and NVIDIA didn't do much for 10, 15 years prior to that. Prior to 2014, 2015-ish, it was CPUs that were dominating. And there's been like a shift, like a 180 shift towards GPUs in the 2014, 2015, which explains that these stocks only started to become growth stocks and interesting growth stories after the 2015 mark, which is why I think it makes sense. And we're still at the very, very beginning of these stocks' growth story, in my humble opinion. But if you look at, from the moment these stocks really started getting excited and they really started to have a product market fit, from that moment, the return has been absolutely insane. You to look at an NVIDIA average annual return for NVIDIA, 55%, for AMD, 50% average annual return. And keep in mind, these returns are taking the current valuations. We're not at peak valuation. So, if I had done the cutoff here, the peak valuation would have been insane. So the long-term trend is clearly above 30% CAGR for both of these companies, in my opinion, which is why I think they're worth owning in a high-growth portfolio. These companies are highly diversified, blue chip companies, sell a lot to data centers. Gamers is not the main business anymore. These are very, very solid corporations, in my opinion. And just for comparison's sake, let me show you the return over the same period for TSMC and Intel. So TSMC performed in line with a valued stock, 22% annual return. It's actually higher than most value stocks, and it's a great return that TSMC has had, but of course not as exciting as a growth stock. Company doubling their revenue every 2 years. There's few things that you can do against the power of that level of compounding. TSMC is a $400 billion company. They operate with atoms, not with bits, and thus, it's tough for you to double or triple your manufacturing facilities in a short amount of time. So that's why. But TSMC is nonetheless has been a great stock to own, more of a value stock in my opinion. And Intel, of course, being the CPU leader, Intel, of course, did not do well at all. It is flat over 8 years, and the value of the dollar has only gone one way. The value of the dollar has greatly devalued. A dollar in 2023 is not worth nearly as much as a dollar in 2015. So actually, even though you're flat in nominal terms, in real terms, you're way down by having owned Intel. And I surely remember 3 years and 2 years ago, like we've known that Intel has had issues for at least 3 years now. It's well known that Intel has had issues. So the turnaround of Intel has yet to happen. Therefore, I will be covering AMD, mostly because the 37% growth next year fits my criteria, and I own both AMD and NVIDIA, and I am considering selling some NVIDIA to put more into AMD, although I'll keep both stocks. Thank you so much for following my channel. This is not investment advice, this is just entertainment. Please please subscribe. It takes me a while to do these videos, so I really like if you can subscribe. Thank you very much and have a great day. Thank you.